All right, so today we're going to teach you how to make custom countertops. We have 3/4 alderwood ply here, and we are going to make our kitchen counter, our prep counter, and our slide away table all out of this 4x8 sheet right here. So we'll teach you how it's done. So the first step is to get the dimensions for your counters and table. So up here we have the dimensions written for our prep, kitchen, and dinner table. And it's perfect for us because if we rip this just under halfway, that's gonna allow us to get our kitchen counter and prep counter out of this half, and then our dining table slide away on this half. So before you go and get your wood, make sure to get your dimensions and see what you're working with, because if you can only have to buy one sheet instead of two, it's gonna be better for the wallet. So a quick note on getting your dimensions. We're gonna put a 3/4 inch plywood, alder plywood on top of this countertop with some 3/4 inch edging trim on the side to clean it up. For the plywood cut, we want it to be whatever the widest measurement of your counter is, which is 37 1/4 for us. So we'll cut our plywood to 37 1/4 for the width, and then we'll add some trim on the side. So you're gonna add 3/4 on this side, 3/4 on this side, so a total of 1.5 inches to the total counter space. So just a mental note. Okay, so we're gonna cut this sheet of plywood down to 22 1/4 wide all the way down, and that'll give us the depth we need for our countertops. So you can run this whole sheet of plywood through a table saw at 22 1/4, but when you're all by yourself, it's a little hard to handle a full sheet of plywood. So this Craig jig for the circular saw is super helpful. You can kind of just set it to where you need, and then as long as you have a straight edge, you can get a nice clean cut all the way down, basically acting like a table saw for you. Here's another handy little tool that Craig makes called the AccuCut. So if you don't have a straight edge, all you need to do is get a straight line. You set this thing up and you can run this on this track, and it gives you a perfect cut along whatever line you set. So you make your measurements, draw your line, set this up on that line, make your cut, and you've got a perfect cut. So we're just gonna do a little dry fit here. See, we got this nice edge all the way down. That's what we want. And same thing on the front. There we go. It's a good looking cut. It's gonna be a pretty countertop. Okay, so we are making our cut for our kitchen counter right now. So be real meticulous. Look at the wood, see what you like, what you don't like. Find which side that you wanna use. For us, we wanna use this side as the top side of our counter. We also want this side of the wood, and we're gonna make our cut. We're gonna cut off part of this side of the kitchen counter. When you're making your cuts, be aware of what tool you're using and where the blade is gonna be entering the wood to make that cut. For the circular saw, it spins this way. So the blade is gonna enter the bottom of the cut first and then pull up. And when it rips up on the outside, on the top side, it'll bring up little chips of the wood. So you're gonna have these little tiny chips in the wood, which aren't a huge deal. But when you're trying to make a really nice countertop, you want to not have the chips. So whatever side you're gonna use as the top, put it on the bottom, and so you get a nice little finish when you're cutting through with your saw. Okay, so we dry fit our kitchen counter, and when you're working in a van, nothing's gonna be square. So if you look over here, it's nice to the wall. Right here, it kinda is a little beveled out. So what we do is we take this measurement here from the wall to the counter, which is about 1/4 inch. And we'll mark the 1/4 inch on this side in, and we'll cut a straight line from here all the way to that 1/4 inch mark, and that should make us nice and flush right up against the wall. So I just took this out, made our cut, and now you can see it fits much more snug right to the corner. Okay, this is 3/4 inches of pure alderwood that we're gonna use to make our trim pieces. So we're gonna rip it down into 1.5 inches wide. So it'll look something like this, and then we'll cut these 45-inch angle pieces, and that's where the corners of the trim will meet on the counters and the table. Okay, so here we go. We have our 1.5 inch thick pieces of three-quarter alder wood here and here. And we're going to be using these, cutting them down on the miter saw to get our nice 45 edges so that they meet nice and pretty on the edges of the counter. So I'm measuring the length of our slide away table, and it's a 1/16 over 68.5, so 68 and 9/16. So the short sides of our 45-degree cuts will measure that. The long sides will be about 3/4 inches over on either side. Cut our first 45-degree angle here. We measure from the short side right here all the way down over here, which is 68 and 9/16. So we'll push this down and make our second 45 cut this way. We cut our trim piece down to 68 and 9/16. So we'll get that short end of the corner matching up there, and the same thing on the other side. And we will put some wood glue and use some brad nails to tack it in. So when you're using the wood glue, you're gonna put a nice little bead, but you don't wanna put too much. You wanna be careful not to get the wood glue on top. And just in case you do, make sure you have a wet rag handy. So if there is any glue, you can wipe that glue off right away. You don't want it to dry, it doesn't look nice. All right, so here we've got it. We've got our table with these alder wood edges on them that are mitered to have these nice 45 joints. And so the next thing will be to sand these things down. If you notice, we've let these trim pieces up a little proud, a little high of the countertop, so that by the time we get these sanded down and all the rough edges out, it'll be nice and smooth to the surface of the counter of the table. Eek. Okay, so the next step is you're gonna want to fill and sand your countertop so that you get a nice smooth, clean surface for when you put your finish on. Everything looks nice and shines. You're gonna want to find some type of color for your fill that's gonna match the wood that you're using. So there's a few different types of colors you can get. I suggest get a few that are in the range that you're looking for. Test it out on a little sample piece and see what dries nicely and you like the best. So for us, we're using the golden oak. Okay, so you fill and sand to get this thing nice and smooth. And then before you finish it, you're gonna wanna use a tack cloth, which is just kind of like a waxy cloth that'll really get off any of the dust and the small fine particles. And you wanna get rid of that before you put a finished coat on. We already have one coat on here, but we gave it a nice sanding, and then we're gonna do another tack cloth here just to get rid of any more dust before we give it another coat. So now that we got all the dust particles out, we're gonna use this polyurethane oil-based finish. And it's a clear gloss. There's different finishes, clear gloss, semi-gloss, satin. And we're just gonna spray it as a finish. It's a nice finish on this. And you wanna spray with the grain of the wood. So for us, that's from this spray that way. And you wanna make sure you're taking it a nice, even approach. You don't wanna put too much of it on one spot, else you end up with these really like spotty looking finishes that don't look nice. So you want a nice and even spray. So we're gonna give it a go right now. We got a few coats of finish on top of this tabletop, and it really looks beautiful. You can really see it with the light, all the different accents in the wood. It's really pretty. So really happy with how it's coming out. we're gonna do one final coat on here. So we're gonna take this quadruple aught steel wool, which you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's, whatever. And we're just gonna do one, just like a sanding, but with really fine steel wool. And then we'll tack cloth it one more time and give a finish. So here we go. So we sanded with the steel wool, use the tack cloth to get all the dust fine particles off, and this is going to be our last final coat. It's going to look beautiful. Here we go. So you should be able to kind of look down at an angle, and it should all look pretty smooth and evenly applied, which it does. So when this thing dries overnight, it is going to look really, really nice. This thing is ready to go. So here's our prep counter. Really like the way that it turned out. It fits really nice and snug over these lower cabinets. And really love the accents of the wood, these nice alderwood strips that run from front to back. They got these really cool accents in here near these knots. And yeah, it's a great product. Came out really nice. We're really happy with it, and we think our clients will too. Here's our finished product, and this is gonna be a slide out table. We've got the final coat on. We wanted to bring it out here in the sun so you could see all the little intricacies in the wood. I think it looks really beautiful. Really happy with it, and yeah, we'll be installing this in the van here in just a bit. So that's how to do it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a thing or two, and good luck on your project.